Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to another dinner break series. My name is Sean Kaufman. I'm the CEO and founding partner of Safer Behaviors, and I want to welcome you again to this session. Good evening to you, and I know some of you are having your family join us tonight, so I want to say welcome and blessings to you as well. It's a great pleasure to be able to serve you and to talk about this very, very important issue, a safer sacrifice, ul-Adha, and please forgive me if I mispronounce particular names or the titles. I'm trying to learn and do the best that I can, but I believe that the issue that we're going to talk about today is a very, very important issue, and I want to continue to drive it home. I know that we are currently doing lots of work in Pakistan on this particular issue. We have a One Health program engaged, and I know we also have some biorisk trainers, and I know NIH and FIC and Fogarty and PEPSA and all these wonderful organizations are working to not only improve biosafety, but increase awareness about important topics like this. So again, I do want to say thank you for attending, and I want to say thank you for your time. I should be done less than an hour. I have muted your microphones. We are recording this session right now, so it can be posted at a later time to YouTube if you weren't able to watch the live session. So if you are watching the recording, thank you very much for joining us. As always, I do love and want questions, and so the chat box is open. And I am hoping that during the presentation that you will take some time and write a question if you have a question. So anyone in the family that may have a question, please feel free to ask that question. Again, doing this for the service of public health, really in essence to talk to you about some very important issues. And again, I hope that that this presentation will serve and allow for you to perform a sacrifice and do it in a safer manner. Now, I do want to encourage you to get the word out. We have a wonderful, wonderful a YouTube channel, PEPSA does. Get the word out. We have over 400 subscribers, 471 at this point in Pakistan, and we will be posting several different videos. We have a lot of videos in development right now, and these videos are really designed for you to watch, for you to share. If you want to share them in a classroom setting, if you want to share them with your colleagues in your lab, you want to use it as the discussion point. It's kind of like you can have kind of a book club, but you're really doing a video club where you watch a video together and then maybe have a discussion on it. That's sometimes some of the best things. But I do want to say, get the word out on this. This is young. It's in its infancy stage. So we're going to build it out, and we're also going to be featuring several people from Pakistan in a variety of different languages. So spread the word, ladies and gentlemen, if you can, because I do believe this is going to be a great work, and it's going to just get better and better as time goes on. So again, welcome, and if you aren't a member of PEPSA, please join, and if you also want to forward our announcements in our dinner break series, we recommend that as well. Today we had over 200 individuals registered. That's over 200 individuals registered. Now granted, we have a low participation rate right now. I'm hoping that as we continue to do this, the people who register understand. If you're listening to this session, remember, when you reserve a spot, you take a spot up. So if you don't attend, in essence, that means that you're taking a spot from other people. So please don't register and then not attend, because then the people that really do want to attend can attend because you have a spot which was not used. So again, we right now have about 60 people on, about 55, I'm looking at my glasses, 56, which is great, throughout Pakistan. So again, I want to say welcome and thank you and your families for joining us. So I do want to talk about this, what is Eid, and I know many of you already know this, and I know many people in the family know this, but I want to express and I want to show why I'm so passionate about this, because I love Allah with all my heart, all my soul, and one thing that's really special about Eid is not only is it the completion of Hajj, which is neat, but it's to commemorate or celebrate the Prophet Ibrahim. And the neat part about this is as a dad, I have 2 sons and a daughter. The first son is always a moment I don't think I'll ever forget. And I can't imagine a request from Allah to sacrifice my son, but this is a very, very special celebration. And this celebration is very special because it really, really celebrates a total 100% surrender to Allah, meaning the willingness and commitment to obey Allah, even when we know it could cause us such significant pain. And when Ibrahim was convicted and convinced that the word had come from Allah, and Allah knew in his heart that he was about to sacrifice his firstborn son, he intervened, allowed for an animal to be sacrificed in its place, or in his son's place. And so this is why we perform an act of qurbani, or sacrifice. And again, I think it's a beautiful demonstration of our willingness and commitment to obey Allah, and it's a very, very special celebration. So I want to say this is something that that I think is very important. It's something that we have to do, and I'm challenging you, in essence, to do it in a safer way. As we celebrate our willingness and commitment to obey Allah always, let's look at what we can do to be safer, and listen to my reasoning behind what I'm saying here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I asked the individuals who registered to complete this survey. We had over 200 responses. Do you perform a sacrifice? We had 74% say yes, 21% said no, I am a woman, and 5% say no. Now, again, this is out of 200 individuals. Now, who performs the sacrifice for the family? 22% other. Now that I know, I probably should have put butcher, because I'm hearing that that's a common individual, but we have a brother, a father, a friend, a husband, and some individuals on this call, 28% say, I actually perform the sacrifice. And when I asked, are you familiar with the risk? I am very, very happy to see that 48% of the individuals are reporting that they are familiar with the risk. Now, what concerns me a little bit is I have a quarter, 26%, that's 50 people in the 200 that are not familiar with the risk, and 26% are kind of a little bit unsure. And so I think this is an important group to address, not only because most of you that are listening to this are very, very well educated. You tend to run in circles where academia and information, availability to information is rampant. I think that there's some awareness building that we need to do, because, and this is not important, it's not only the men that are at risk when performing these sacrifices, but afterwards when we process the meat, when we're doing a cleanup. And remember, at the bottom of it, our children are at risk. Each year, CCHF causes problems in Pakistan. Protect our children by washing your hands frequently. And the reason why I'm bringing up children is it's not necessarily the children that may be performing the sacrifice, but if something happens to a parent as a result of this, it's going to impact the child. It'll impact the child for the rest of their life. So again, as a public service announcement, and something that does have a direct effect on biosafety. And we're in a great position in biosafety. If you're a biosafety professional and you've been trained by me, whether it's through FIC, NIH, Fogarty, PEPSA, ASM, whoever, this information that you've been given can be used to prevent public health risks like the ones we're talking about here. So what is it that we're talking about? Well, we're really talking about zoonotic diseases. Now, zoonotic diseases are caused by infections that are shared between animals and people. This is a very, very real threat. Scientists estimate that 60%, 6 out of every 10, 60%, 6 out of every 10 known infectious diseases in people are spread from animals. And 3 out of 4, that's 75%, of new or emerging infectious diseases in people are spread from animals. Now, this means it's a very, very serious issue. And the reason why it's a serious issue is sometimes a disease doesn't necessarily make an animal very sick, but it can make a human very sick. And what I mean by that is that sometimes cows or livestock can live very normally with CCHF. This is a virus we're going to talk about a little bit later. And so you don't know that they're sick. You have no clue that they're sick. They're not showing signs of illness. They seem healthy. And the next thing you know is that you have a sacrifice of a healthy, or what you think is a healthy animal. And the reality is that that animal with its blood can actually cause illness to occur in you. And we're going to talk about a variety of different ways, but that's the concern when you're working around animals or you're sacrificing or even living with animals. You need to be aware that there are some diseases that can be spread from animals into humans. Now, this transmission can occur in a variety of different ways. First, it can occur by direct contact. Now, this means that you could come in contact with blood or saliva or urine or feces of an animal. You can, from petting or touching, scratches that occur from an animal. It can come from indirect contact. Say, for example, you have an animal that roams, and as it roams, it touches objects or surfaces and it contaminates those surfaces. Or when you do a sacrifice, the blood from that animal, if it's done in a shady area and it's very hot and humid, that blood can maintain its virility and cause illness when it contaminates surfaces. Things can be, ticks can go from animals that are sick and bite humans, healthy humans, and cause illnesses in those healthy humans. And last but not least, if the food during processing or during being cooked is not cooked thoroughly, and during processing is not washed, or you're not washing your hands after you're handling raw meat, this could be another way of transmission from animal to human, okay? Now, I'm setting the stage here because when we talk about these transmission of zoonotic diseases, it can be done through aerosol, oral, direct, fomites, meaning surface aspects, or through vectors like ticks, mosquitoes, those types of things. In Pakistan, mosquitoes not only produce malaria, but you've got all sorts of issues with diseases from ticks as well. And one of those that we want to talk about is CCHF. And we're going to talk a little bit about things you can do right now to prevent zoonotic diseases. Now, the first thing that you can do is always try your best to keep your hands clean. This is very, very important. And the neat part is that washing your hands frequently, soap and water, or using some type of disinfectant like a hand sanitizer works as well. You also need to increase human and animal health awareness. If you're sick, please don't go to the market and interact with animals. And if you know that there's a sick animal, do your best not to interact with the sick animals as well. We also need to communicate better. If we're sick, we communicate that. And if we have an animal that's sick, we communicate that as well. Practice social responsibility, meaning take care of yourself and realize that you are not the only one in the community. If you are sick, stay away from other people, communicate that. If you have a sick child, the same thing. If you have a sick animal, the same thing. Don't ignore the issue, because ignoring the issue can lead to other people being sick as well. Eliminate and control vectors. Look, try and treat for ticks and fleas and mosquitoes before they cause problems. Before they cause problems. Don't wait until they're there to cause problems. See if there's things that you can do to eliminate these vectors, these mosquitoes, these fleas, these ticks that can actually cause illness in human beings. Manage feces. Look, if we do it very well as human beings, we tend to use toilets or plumbing. If we have animals that have feces and they're not cleaned up, that can lead to the spread of disease. So make sure that the feces is cleaned up and controlled effectively and properly. You want to minimize direct contact with wild animals. Remember, the livestock that's coming into Pakistan, and this is what's concerning me, it's not livestock that resides in Pakistan. A lot of the livestock used for Eid comes in from neighboring countries, and quite honestly, we are not monitoring the health of this livestock. That means that the livestock could potentially be in an unhealthy state when we perform sacrifice, and that is an issue. So minimize your contact with wild animals. Make sure that if you're going to prepare your food, you prepare it properly. You cook it fully. You wash your hands after handling raw meat. Always do your best to prepare your food properly. Now, you're going to want to also minimize contact with unclean water. When water is not clean, it can be a means of spreading zoonotic diseases. Communicate with your doctors and your, look, if you are living in Pakistan and the livestock has come in and you've gone to the market to look at your livestock and you go home and the next thing you know, you've got a tick on you or you've got a tick bite, you've got a tick, you know you've been bitten by a tick. Now, that in and of itself is not something to pull the fire alarm and to start panicking over. But if you start demonstrating symptoms and you present with a particular illness, make sure you inform your doctor that there's been a tick bite. This could be a very important message and an important factor in you getting the quality care that you need. That's not only for you, but it's also for your children. Tick bites should be communicated, especially if you present with an illness within the next 7 to 10 days. You should be communicating with your physician that you did get bit by a tick, because that could be an important factor in determining your quality of care, okay? Wear proper personal protective equipment when working around animals and when actually performing a sacrifice, and do your best. I mean, it's funny because I don't think people try to get bit by animals on purpose, but avoid bites and scratches from animals the best that you can, okay? The best that you can. Now, let me pause here real fast. I want to see and make sure that we don't have any questions. I'm sorry, I'm old, I need glasses, so bear with me here. I'm looking at just a lot of greetings, so good. Nocturne Nassim says, how to manage feces or urine of an animal? Well, wash it down with water if you do have water. Make sure that you dispose of feces as well as you can, or at least store it in a particular area until it is used or used for other purposes. Reutilization of feces as fertilizer, those types of things. But that's typically, you're going to want to keep your areas clean, because you don't want animals to contaminate areas with the feces, and you don't want them living or laying in the feces that they're producing. Now, this is the threat that concerns me the most. There's a lot of literature on CCHF. There's a lot of history in Pakistan on CCHF. CCHF is something that is, I would almost like to say, endemic in essence, and it's what we're really up against. Now, there are two ways that CCHF can enter a human being. It can enter a human being by going from a tick bite into a human, meaning the tick bites the livestock that is sick with CCHF. And I always like to say, I don't like to say sick, because the livestock is acting normal. See, that's the problem. Like, most of us would stay away from a rabid dog or a rabid cat or an animal that's acting weird. But we're not going to be able to see animals, the animals that have CCHF and the animals that don't, we're not going to be able to draw a distinction. And right now, the resources aren't there or available to screen the animal population, so we don't necessarily know how healthy that population is. And so we could be doing our sacrifice blindly. So this means that when we start our preparation for sacrifice, it begins when we go to the market to start selecting the animals. How you dress when you go to the market, what you wear when you go to the market. It should be something very special. We're going to talk a little bit about that, because that's where preparedness begins, right at that point. Now, just to give you some facts on CCHF, the fatality rate is up to 40% of people who get sick with it will pass away. Now, CCHF, the good news is that it's a lipid envelope virus. And for those of you that aren't yet scientists and you're listening to this, viruses and bacteria and parasites, they have a wide spectrum of how hard it is to inactivate with disinfectants. Meaning, if you look at something like a CCHF and bleach, CCHF won't last very long when it comes in contact with bleach. So at 1 part per million of bleach, CCHF won't last longer than 5 seconds. However, Cryptosporidium, which is a parasite, will live for 6.7 days at 1 part per million. So when we talk about disinfecting for a virus, CCHF is very easy to inactivate. In fact, it's the easiest. That's why hand sanitizers are really, really good thing to use, especially when trying to stay clean and safe during a sacrifice for CCHF. It's typically worked at in a BSL-4 laboratory. It is a hemorrhagic fever, and it is spread from ticks or livestock to humans. So it is a zoonotic disease. And what we're really worried about is it is spread human to human as well. And this is the scary part. When you come down with a CCHF infection, you then go to the hospital, and now you've got nurses and doctors that begin treating you, And again, there are past cases of CCHF that have made healthcare providers sick as well. So what we're concerned about in Pakistan is not only the sacrifice, but if you do get sick with CCHF and you do present in a healthcare or hospital setting, we want the doctors and nurses on the front line to be safe as well. The incubation period, the time it takes for you to be exposed to the virus and then show symptoms, meaning the time between you have an exposure and you get sick, is usually 1 to 3 with a maximum of 9 days. Now, this is following a tick bite. So if you get a tick bite and you get sick between 1 and 10 days, please let your providers know you've been bitten by a tick. Very, very important. Now, if you are handling blood or performing a sacrifice, you're not been bit by a tick, typically the incubation period is 5 to 6 days, maximum 2 weeks. So once you perform your sacrifice, remember, for the next week or 2 weeks, watch yourself. If you begin to present with fever, malaise, dizziness, stiff neck, backache, headache, or sore eyes, pay attention to those symptoms, especially if they're within the 2 weeks following the sacrifice, because this could be an indicator that you may have had an exposure. Now, there can be vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pains, and sore throats early on, but after about 2 to 4 days, patients become sleepy, they get a little sad and depressed, and may have abdominal pain in the upper right quadrant of the liver, okay, up in this area right up here. Patients may also exhibit fast heart rate, swollen lymph nodes, and a rash, okay, kind of a very ugly rash. It looks like a nasty bruise, okay? These, again, are things that you should be paying attention to. Patients who are severely ill will experience rapid kidney failure and liver failure, along with pulmonary failure after the 5th day of illness. Death would usually occur in the 2nd week, and patients' involvement begins 9th or 10th day of illness, okay? So this is typically our patient improvement. This is typically what we see. Again, trying to raise awareness. Remember, the virus is spread through tick bites and through blood of animals. And if the animal is very virulent, it will take less fluid for you to get sick, so less contact. What works for disinfectant? You can use basic soap and detergents. That works just fine. You can use bleach if you wish as well. But basic soap and detergents work for proper decontamination time. Being that it is a lipid envelope virus, it's not very difficult to inactivate, so it doesn't take very much to kill it. Sunlight can kill it. If you're going to perform your sacrifices, please don't perform sacrifices in well-shaded and hot and humid areas. Perform them out in the sun, because ultraviolet will kill and dry out CCHF and inactivate it as well. So even if you don't use a chemical, sunlight will do that as well. And what procedures place healthcare workers at increased risk? Anytime we have to interact with patients' blood or care for a patient, we're going to be put at an increased risk. So as you can see, this is where the concern. This is someone from outside of Pakistan who loves serving Pakistan with all my heart. I truly, truly do. And I love being there. I am very concerned because you have a migrant movement of animals. These migrant movement animals come in to Pakistan. We don't know the health of the livestock. Individuals men go to the markets, and families do. They select the animal. They sacrifice an animal that could be sick in a way that could make them sick. They share the meat, share the animal. In processing the animal, it's not just men anymore. Now you've got women. You've got people who then may get sick and go to a hospital. Our healthcare workers don't know when you're feverish that you have CCHF, so they may be taking additional risk and put themselves at risk. So if you're seeing what I'm telling you right here, it is a public health risk. This is a public health concern that is very special for Pakistan. And I think that we can be aware of this, and increased awareness will lead to better decision-making processes and minimizing risk associated with sacrifice during need. And that's really all we're trying to get at. Now, one of the aspects that we would do is we would recommend that when you perform your sacrifice or when you select your animal, that you actually have, you pay attention to some PPE, you do some things ahead of time so that you can prepare to do your sacrifice, and then you don't have to necessarily worry about the health of the actual animal. And that's, again, what I'm scared about is that we're going to run into this virulent form of a disease, very, very infectious, and it could cause people to become sick, and lots of people in Pakistan, and I certainly don't want that. So this year, and if you look at images of sacrifice, and one of the things that I'm very fortunate in serving both FIC and ASM, these organizations, I have a lot of individuals that I would consider friends, and you get to see firsthand how behavior occurs. And if you look at this here, you'll see they're bare hands, and we have cuts and tears along our cuticles of our fingers where blood can enter our body. And if this animal happens to be sick, this could pose a significant risk to those performing the sacrifice. Also notice the sacrifice seems to be in a very shaded area. There doesn't seem to be a lot of sunlight. It actually may look kind of cool as well, or it could be hot and humid. But the reality is that we really do want an area where after the sacrifice occurs, individuals don't have the opportunity to play in that area or to come in contact with things in that area that could cause illness because surfaces were contaminated with something that was contaminated as well. So what can we do to perform a safer sacrifice? And again, let me stop right here. And before I go into the final part of this presentation, I want to say thank you again for attending. I hope this is beneficial so far. I want to see if we have any questions. So when we talk about increasing human and animal communication, we're talking about the combination of having environmental health, public health, veterinarians, and very important, medical doctors, nurses, healthcare providers communicating. If we're seeing a population in the animals that are demonstrating illness, then we have to be on the lookout because, again, human beings like to kind of believe that we are isolated from everything. But we are really truly part of an equation. We share an environment with animals and plants. And the reality is that if animal health is not good, it's going to have an impact on human health. And so when we talk about animal-human health communication, we need partnerships between veterinarians, healthcare providers, public health professionals, and we need open communication. And especially right before Eid and right after Eid, do we need these amazing partnerships to be communicating with one another, especially. It should be all the time, but especially during that time, okay? All right? The people in our area consider it not good to use PPE while sacrificing animals. Dr. Khan, definitely understand that. I wouldn't call it PPE, but I would see if they would be open to doing something that would prevent a potentially contaminated blood from entering their bodies, whether it be sunglasses or kitchen gloves. I don't know, but I understand we have to be sensitive and respectful. And so that is a challenge that I have not yet been able to think of solution-wise. If we don't have the money to test the animals, but we're going to be putting ourselves in a position where we could be exposed to a very dangerous virus, what do we do? I don't know. I think the best thing that we can do, Dr. Khan, is kind of increase awareness of the issue and then support people for whatever decisions they choose to make. And so keep in mind that there are no demands, there are no orders. We're not telling people what to do. What we're trying to do is raise awareness and empower them to take care of themselves if they choose to do that. I'm not telling people what they need to do. Dr. al-Hijjah says, I think we should put animals in an isolated area where we don't know about their, that's very true. I think that's a very good point, Dr. al-Hijjah. We don't know their status, but quite honestly, let's be practical. During Eid, we have, I can't even count the number of animals that are going to be coming in. The practicality for ensuring that these animal populations are healthy before performing a sacrifice, it just does not seem very practical. So if it's not practical, how do we protect the general population? Well, we inform them about zoonotic diseases and we empower them to make decisions that's right for them. That's, I think, where we've got to go. Dr. Nassim says, by PPE, you mean goggles, gown, gloves, and sacrifice arena? People sacrifice at home usually. Look, one of the things that I have challenged people to do in the assignments that I've given, we've asked people to make sacrifice kits. You're about ready to see them. Is to find common things, not laboratory things. I'm not asking you to go to your laboratory and grab your Tyvek suit and your gloves. I mean, it's nice if you wanted to do that. I'm not asking you to do that. What I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to consider covering all portals of entry during a sacrifice, not allowing a disease, if an animal is carrying that disease, to enter your body. That's what I'm saying. It could be a pair of glasses. It could be kitchen gloves. Just think about that. That's what we're talking about. Let's see here. I'm looking. CCHF is very contagious. It's not only contagious from animal to human, but it's also contagious from human to human. And that's a very important question, because what we're seeing is it's not only the butchers that get sick or the people that come in contact with the ticks that get sick, but then those people who treat them in the hospital get sick as well. And that's a very important point to put out. The tick bite usually, and a mosquito bite usually, it usually will itch, and it usually will go away in a short period of time. A tick bite is, you actually see a tick. Usually you'll see a tick with a tick bite, but it can also be some red around, and it'll last a little bit longer for most people following a tick bite. Is there a solution to prevent himself and other family members? Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Bear with me here. Dr. Shaza says, what about this application in remote villages of our population is residing in rural areas, and evidence of CCHF are found in those particular areas more as compared to urban areas? So there is a need to extend. I agree, ladies and gentlemen. My hope is that every single person watching this, including children or family members, is that you just have a conversation. If you believe in what we're saying and you believe it's the right thing to do, have a conversation with people about this. Share this information, share the slides, share this information with people again, and again, encourage them. Keep this in mind. This presentation is not about telling people what to do. That's not what it's about. It's about giving you information and allowing you to make a choice of what's best for you, and always allow people to make that choice for what's best for them. The fact is we have a long history of CCHF in Pakistan. We know that it's a zoonotic disease. We know we can't test the animals coming into Pakistan before we sacrifice them. So that puts human beings on the front line of emerging infectious diseases and a very dangerous agent, CCHF. So trying to increase awareness and empower people to do a sacrifice in a safer way. And that's the key, to do it in a safer way. Not to stop doing it, but to do it in a safer way. All right. What are the precautions for people who are dealing with cattle and working in farms? They are at high risk, absolutely. So try and treat the cattle for ticks, meaning minimize the vectors associated with those cows or those livestock, minimize ticks, control feces, make sure you wash your hands frequently, avoid bites and scratches. These are way in an earlier slide that you prevent zoonotic diseases, okay? All right, can we follow the steps of a needle stick injury if we get, yes, if you get cut during sacrifice, that is beautiful, Dr. Rafiq, yes, follow the steps of a needle stick, expose, express, flush, cover the wound, and make sure that you note it, because if you do present with an illness within the next 10 days or 2 weeks, you should note to your provider that you were cut during a sacrifice and that exposure may have caused that, okay? All right, Dr. Anderson, most of the time people are reluctant to wear PPE while they perform a sacrifice. A lot of efforts are needed in order to convey this very important message. Dr. Hussein, there's no doubt, whenever we are asking for a change in culture or in life, it is going to be tough at first. There will be people who will argue. There will be people who will not like it. Remember that this message is out of love. That's all it is. It's out of care. We're not trying to tell you what to do. I'm certainly not. I'm simply saying, let's be aware of risks that are out there. And if you choose to do something about those risks, these are some of the things that we would recommend that you do. All right, that's a very good. Always remember to love. That's the key. Do this with a loving spirit. Do it out of care for the men performing the sacrifice and for people who are processing after the sacrifice. Do it with love and concern. That's it. That's all you're trying to do it, okay? If an animal is sacrificed is infected despite safe practices, what if the meat of the animal is consumed? If the animal meat is consumed, that's not a concern as long as it's cooked properly. If it's cooked fully and handled properly during the cooking process, you should be fine. If it's raw, then we may have a problem. And if you don't process it properly, meaning you don't handle it while it's raw and you don't wash your hands, you could have a problem as well. So that's why it's not just men that are a risk here. It is women as well. It's anybody who processes the meat that could be at risk too. And again, I'm petrified. I'm scared. If there's an animal population that has CCHF at large quantities for Pakistan, this could be really harmful, and it makes me very nervous. And so that's why, again, I want to share this information with all of you, okay? A behavior does change culture. CCHF is the most easiest to kill. I love that you guys are talking with one another. This is fantastic. And I think that it does, Dr. Ajaz, I agree with you. I think we need to promote it to everyone as much as we can. Let's see here. So far, I'm seeing good. Any notable symptoms in animals who are infected? Unfortunately not, Dr. Tayyab. Unfortunately not. Dr. Nauman, along with CCHF, other zoonotic disease from butchers are most important from butcher's point, TB, hepatitis. These things are very, very real. And especially when we look at bovine TB, very real issue in Pakistan. Okay, so you can get tuberculosis from bovine aspects. So let's see here. Any other questions? I think everybody's doing well. I'm glad. I see a lot of people are trying to spread the information to the general public. I think that's our responsibility. If we've got information, we have to share it. And the reality is that it's good. I like Dr. Khan. There should be a survey to know the status of CCHF affected animals. There should be, but the resources right now are not where they need to be to have that. So let's talk about what we can do. All right. So first and foremost, our protection and our preparedness aspects start with the selection of the sacrifice. So first and foremost, let's say you're going to go to the market to select the animal you're going to sacrifice. Please consider using DEET, some type of product that would repel a tick from even wanting to get on your body. Ticks can be present at the market. They can be on the animals. And if they're on the animals, make sure that you have done something with yourself to prevent potential tick bites at the market. Wear light colored clothing. You want to wear white. I love white. Wear white. It may not be the great place, but wear white. And that way people can see ticks or bugs that are crawling on you. Very, very important. If you want to make sure you tuck your pant legs into your socks, that way ticks can't crawl up your socks and into your legs or all the way up your legs. So try and do that. Listen, one thing that ticks like is they like shade. Try to avoid tick-infested areas or shaded areas. They don't like sunlight too much. So that's another thing. And then again, when you return from the market, do a visual inspection of yourself, your children, your pets, just to make sure that if there are any ticks, they are carefully removed. So this is when we go to the market and select our animal. I think that's very, very important. I see Dr. Jamil says, I think that by writing an article or making videos in local language does not increase awareness in rural because village people do not prefer to listen to whole video. I think you've got to talk to people. You really do. I think you've got to talk to people. Dr. Sima says, Sean, after the sacrifice, mostly the women at home is who's processing in store. Kindly suggest do the women. Yeah, I agree. These precautions are for men and women. And I think it's very, very important that that we consider that because it can affect everyone. Let's see here. NIH department can provide information on prevalence of CCH. I agree with you guys 100%. I will tell you though that majority of people that get sick with CCHF may not show signs and symptoms. And so I think one thing that would be fascinating in Pakistan is they actually have a baseline, meaning if you could get random samples of people and determine a baseline of exposure to CCHF. I think that it's underreported significantly. And if we had more of a baseline and understood what the significance was, it would be, I think, a good idea and a great place to start. I think because of visibility of ticks, people might prefer light-colored animals instead of, yeah, you're right, Dr. Muhammad. Light-colored animals will show ticks a little bit more. So absolutely. Dr. Jaz, I think 2 weeks before Eid, count mosquitoes nearby, make a polite speech, not to frighten others, but positive way. But I agree with you 100%. There's always a way to communicate. Human beings can tolerate risk. What they can't tolerate is deception. That's something that people do not like, okay? All right, they do not like. And that's another good point. Please don't mix your pets with your livestock. That's not something we want you to do. All right, last but not least, let's talk a little bit about here. Now, I will tell you, I work right now with the American Society for Microbiology, and this month, I've asked over 100 professionals in Pakistan to build a sacrifice safety kit. And I have seen some unbelievable results. Now, here's the challenge that these individuals had. The challenge is that they were going to perform a sacrifice with an animal that was and is sick with CCHF. And how would we perform that sacrifice in a safe way? This was the challenge. It was a hypothetical challenge. And I said, you can't go to your lab. You can't grab items from your lab. You've got to go to the grocery store, you got to go to the market, and you've got to create a safety kit based on the materials that would be readily available in Pakistan. And boy, did they do an amazing job. And I think it's important that you understand that you can build a sacrifice kit on your own. Sunglasses, a ball cap, kitchen gloves, an apron, hand sanitizer. These things are readily available in Pakistan and can truly provide some protection that you're going to need, a handkerchief, some protection that you will need during the sacrifice and during the handling of blood as a result of that sacrifice and the meat that comes from that sacrifice as well. Remember, the goal is to protect your portals of entry. So protect your eyes, your mouth, any tears or cuts in your skin, including around your fingertips or around your toes. That's why closed-toed shoes are a good idea. We can do this with personal protective equipment. We can do this. And look, when we work in the field during outbreaks, we don't have laboratory equipment. You have to be creative. Find creative ways, and you don't even have to call it PPE. Just say when you perform a sacrifice, consider covering your eyes with sunglasses. Cover your hands with kitchen gloves, work gloves. You can do all sorts of things, but whatever you do, try to protect those portals of entry. And remember that just because we have great PPE doesn't mean it's good enough. We must also make sure we remove our PPE properly following the sacrifice. Remember, CCHF is a lipid envelope virus, so it's very easy to inactivate. That's why I would strongly recommend that you sanitize your hands. After every step. Now, if you look here, the part of the assignment, you see Dr. Michelle from PEPSA. I highlighted her assignment. If you look, it's one thing to have your items in the kit, but you also provide a doffing aspect. Don't take off your dirty stuff with bare hands. You take off your shoes, you sanitize your hands, your apron, you sanitize your hands. In your first pair of gloves, sanitize your hands. Your handkerchief, sanitize your hands. Your second pair of gloves, wash your hands. It's a beautiful example of how we would doff contaminated PPE following a particular sacrifice. Always remove your PPE from dirty to clean and use sanitizer between steps. Remember, the CCHF is very easy to kill and inactivate. So if you use hand sanitizer as you're doffing your gear, that's a good thing as well, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have about 15 minutes and I'll take some questions, but let's protect the people we love, the men performing the sacrifices, the women who are doing the processing, the children who are playing, and the children who have parents who they love. Let's protect the people we love. Let's do safety together. And again, let's take this message out to people. Let's own it, and let's see if we can increase awareness. Remember, don't dictate. That's not the key here. The key is to empower people, to understand the risks that they face, and that it's not hopeless, that there are things they can do to minimize risk to themselves and those they love. And that's the key to awareness, is just teaching them that there is a risk and there is something that you can do about it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this dinner break series. And if you're watching this on a recording, I want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me at the email address below. For those of you out there live right now, I will take questions. So please ask your questions. And again, I appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you next month at our next dinner break series, inshallah. Until then, blessings to you and your family. Allah Hafiz. Take care.